Max lived in a small village, surrounded by a dense, mysterious forest. The village was peaceful, and the people were kind, but they always spoke in whispers when the forest was mentioned. The older villagers told stories about the forest, stories about strange creatures and things that couldn't be explained. They warned the children never to go too far into the woods. Some said they had seen things moving in the shadows, and others told of travelers who had entered the forest, never to return. But Max wasn't afraid. He was a curious young man, and the stories only made the forest seem more exciting to him. Every time he walked by the trees at the edge of the village, he felt a pull of something unknown, something waiting to be discovered. Max couldn't understand why the others were so scared. The forest was just trees, right? How could they all be so wrong? Max's parents, especially his mother, were always worried when he ventured near the forest. Max, his mother would say, the forest is full of dangers. Stay close to the village, and remember what the others say. It's not a place for children like you. Max would smile and promise her he would be careful. But inside, he knew he was different from the others. He wasn't afraid of the unknown. He wanted to know what was beyond the trees, what lay hidden in the heart of the forest. He had to find out. One bright, sunny morning, Max decided it was time. He packed a small bag, taking with him a sandwich, a bottle of water, a flashlight, and a map. His mother, as usual, warned him to stay safe. Don't go too deep, she said, giving him a hug before he left. Promise me you'll come back before dark. Max nodded and reassured her, I will, Mom. Don't worry. With that, he waved goodbye and set off toward the forest. The first few steps into the forest felt exciting, even magical. The air was cooler under the thick branches of the trees, and Max could hear the soft rustling of leaves. He loved the smell of the woods, the rich scent of the earth mixed with the freshness of pine and moss. The sunlight filtered through the canopy, casting dappled shadows on the ground. It was peaceful, and Max felt a sense of calm as he walked deeper into the forest. But as he went farther, the forest seemed to grow quieter. The usual sounds of birds chirping and animals moving through the underbrush disappeared. The silence was strange, almost oppressive. Max paused and listened. Not a sound. It was as if the forest was holding its breath. Max shook his head. I'm just imagining things, he muttered to himself. But deep inside, he couldn't ignore the unsettling feeling that was slowly creeping over him. He pushed forward, determined to see what lay ahead. After walking for a long time, Max came across something strange. He was following a small, worn path when he noticed something to his left, an old, overgrown trail that seemed to lead into the deeper part of the forest. The trees on either side were thick with vines and moss, and the path was barely visible, hidden beneath a layer of fallen leaves. It wasn't on his map. Max felt a sudden curiosity. This must be the way to something important, he thought. Without hesitation, he decided to follow it. As he walked down the narrow trail, the forest seemed to close in around him. The air grew heavier, thicker, and the sunlight faded. The trees were so close now that they blocked out most of the light, casting everything in shadow. Max felt a strange chill run down his spine, but he ignored it. He had come this far, and he wasn't going to turn back now. The path twisted and turned, leading him deeper into the forest. Max's footsteps echoed in the quiet, and he began to feel a growing sense of isolation. The trees seemed to be closing in on him, and the silence was unnerving. He checked his map again, but the path wasn't there. He was lost. Panic began to rise in his chest, But he forced himself to stay calm. I'll just retrace my steps, he thought. But when he tried to go back, the path seemed to change. The trees looked different, and the way back was no longer visible. Max was truly lost. Suddenly, he heard something, footsteps. Slow and steady, like someone walking behind him. Max froze. He spun around, but there was no one there. His heart began to race. The footsteps stopped. Max stood there, listening, but he could hear nothing else. Then, the footsteps began again, louder this time, closer. Max's breath caught in his throat. He turned and ran. He ran as fast as he could, his feet pounding on the soft ground. He didn't dare look behind him. The footsteps followed, echoing in the stillness. Max ran through the trees, hoping to escape whatever was chasing him. His legs burned, and his chest felt tight, but he kept going. Eventually, Max stumbled into a small clearing. He stopped to catch his breath. In the middle of the clearing stood a figure. It was tall and cloaked in a dark robe. Its face was hidden under a hood. Max felt a wave of fear wash over him. How had this figure appeared so suddenly? Was it the source of the footsteps? Was it watching him? The figure spoke, its voice soft and low, but clear. You shouldn't be here, Max. This forest is not for you. Max was stunned. How did the figure know his name? His heart raced, and he took a step back. Who are you? He asked, his voice trembling. The figure didn't answer. Instead, it reached out and touched Max's forehead with one cold finger. In that moment, everything around him seemed to blur. His vision went dark, and the ground beneath him disappeared. Max felt dizzy, as if he was falling through time and space. When Max finally opened his eyes, he was no longer in the forest. The clearing was gone. He was standing at the edge of his village, the sun shining brightly as if nothing had happened. He felt disoriented. What just happened? He thought, looking around. But something was wrong. The village seemed different. The people walked by, but they didn't look at him. Max tried to call out to them, but they didn't hear him. He ran up to one villager and waved his hand in front of their face, but they didn't react. Max's heart sank. He couldn't understand what was happening. He ran to his house, but when he knocked on the door, no one answered. He turned the doorknob, but the door was locked. Max shouted for his parents, but they couldn't hear him. They didn't even seem to know he was there. Panic gripped him as he realized the horrible truth. He wasn't in the same world anymore. The forest had taken him to a place where he didn't belong. The village was empty, and no one could see or hear him. Max was trapped in a strange, silent world, lost forever. The path he had followed had led him to a different reality, one where he was invisible, forgotten by everyone. He was now just a ghost, wandering the village that no longer belonged to him. Thank you for joining me on this mysterious journey through the forest. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more tales filled with twists and turns. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and stay tuned for more adventures. Until next time, keep exploring the unknown.